How's it going, everybody? So there's a question that sometimes comes up that I've seen lately where people ask, how long does it take, to have this voluntarist or anarcho-capitalist society? Does it take one generation or two or more, or, what does it take? And the short answer to that is that who knows how long it takes? It's one of those things that there's so many factors to it and variables that there isn't some sort of like prediction metric as to how long something like that takes to be done effectively. Because unlike um, many of the institutions of the past, there isn't this opening with liberty that begins with slaughtering the enemies and then forcibly indoctrinating several generations, in the Prussian style, of people into belief in the system. The system of liberty involves communicating and sharing and using reason and empathy to reach out to people and to live through example and lead through example and share and work and grow and evolve intellectually. And that type of intellectual evolution is is something that takes a while. Just like any sort of physical changes, the mind and the growth and social evolution takes a long time, especially when you're competing against other forms of oppressive ideologies. And there are things that could be suggested to speed it along. I've written my little piece on how I think turning the government into a not-for-profit in terms of ending taxation, ending programs which involve seeking out and hurting those who are committing things that are not with a victim, they're victimless activity, and reducing the size and scope of government over time while restoring to the best possibly can as the government possibly can its past um, victims. That could work to start bridging the gap market-wise, and possibly thereafter, taking certain types of government functions and selling them in terms of shares, much like a corporation and, a publicly shared good within regions and so on and so forth. There are ways to dismantle in a way that still keeps up security, in a way that still keeps up some of the vestiges so that there's a transition period, so it's not just shock and chaos, because the bridge that is difficult to cross is not that there's suddenly liberty and people encouraging peace through respect of others. The bridge that is the chaos is that people were so reliant on an indoctrination of belief in a system to protect them from themselves and to justify certain types of harms towards others, right? That using the government as a way to commit acts that could not otherwise be done. The ballot box as the tool of murder, as the tool of theft, and changing that psychology and correcting it by no longer making an exception takes a while for people to get adjusted to. And, this is just something that could take, a couple years, 1,000 years, who knows? Who knows? But no step toward that direction is a bad thing. Even if it takes that long, how is working toward increasing peace and understanding and removing the escalation of violence and removing automatic mandatory rulers who live by theft and murder, how is that going to be a bad thing, even if it takes a long time? There's nothing wrong with that. It's a journey, it's a process, just like any other growth in human history, any other growth in shared knowledge and discoveries about the universe or ourselves. And that should not be shied away from. It just is something that has to occur as best as people can with the circumstances. And it's not going to be perfect. There's going to be gray areas. There's going to be conflict and turmoil as things change. But the long term and the process of changeover will reduce the violence that was in the past by leaps and bounds, as far as total systemic violence as against people and the poverty of oppression and the suppression of knowledge. And as knowledge increases and as people start to work with each other on a basis of straightforward, evenly distributed ethical norms, and when I say that, I'm not talking about distributing wealth, I'm talking about norms being distributed as equal as among all people, not exceptions because you happen to be a politician or wear a fancy costume. When that starts to happen, then things start to change. And I would love to see that happen in my day, but I recognize it might not. It might not. But I think that there is a distinct movement toward that. And a lot of that is thanks to the internet and technology. It's very fortunate that technology has been overcoming what is the government's suppression of knowledge and ethics. Because we're using space age technology, but the government is still trying to enforce Stone Age philosophy. And as the philosophy starts to be elevated thanks to technology, people are starting to realize there's a better way. And the political process is way too slow because the political process does not allow people to evolve past its use. And that's the ultimate problem. If you have a system where you can't evolve past, then you're stuck in a rut. And if that rut is violence, then it's going to be a really harmful time for a lot of people. So I hope that clarifies the gray areas, but also gives you hope and some thoughts to, kind of work through in terms of what would be good for helping to push forward liberty in our time. What things could be done. What systems of ethics or workings or business could be advocated to help push things along while maintaining some sense of stability and peace along the way. You don't want civil wars. You don't want people battling and duking it out and killing each other over petty things. You want people to work together and have peace and also have restoration to the best extent possible for those who were hurt in the past directly, where that's traceable. So thanks so much for listening, and I'll talk to you later.